So namaste and welcome to Satsang this evening. And just before we really get going, just a reminder of what Satsang is. No matter how many years or how long we've been attending Satsang, it's always good to remind ourselves of why we're actually here, gathering virtually like this together. And Satsang really is a place where we come to associate with truth. There is something special that happens when a group of beings gather together to to talk about, to think about, but most importantly, to begin to experience what we actually are. There is so much more to us than we've been led to believe, and there's so much more to explore about ourselves. And Satsang really is the place to begin to do that. And although Satsang is a gathering such as this, really our entire life becomes a Satsang when we're ready, when everything that we go through, everything that we suffer, everything that we have to work our way through ends up being something that we can use as part of our awakening. So in that way, our entire life can be a Satsang, can be a continuous unfolding of our spiritual awakening. So it's important to realize the importance of what we're gathered together for, that it's not to be overlooked how amazing it is that you are already at this point in your evolution where you find yourself drawn to a kind of teaching that is going to help you to see what's really, really true. And that is significant in itself. And it's not something I mention very often, but I just wanted to start with that tonight to say that to end up in a gathering like this, your awakening is already gathering pace and is inevitable now. Really, just it's a question of how long that takes, and that's really what I was going to talk about tonight. There is a myth in the human consciousness that awakening is hard to do, that it's something that is very, very rare, and that it takes an extremely long time, or that perhaps we have to transcend our karma first, or we have to have some special skills or something like that. And it's just not true, because if we look back in human history, every single time that a being has come to a place of complete openness and a willingness to let go of everything they think is true, then awakening has happened effortlessly, spontaneously, naturally, and immediately. And even when a being has come to a partial or a slight willingness to let go of what we think is true, some amount of light has begun to shine through, some experience, some shift has happened. So awakening isn't this thing that's going to happen by chance, if at all. It's absolutely going to happen, cannot fail to occur once the necessary conditions are met within that human being. It's like saying, if I open the curtains in my room here and the sun's shining outside, it's like saying, I'm leaving it to chance whether the sun's going to come in through the window or not. And it's just not that way, is it? The moment I open the curtains, the sunlight's going to come streaming in. So what is the necessary prerequisites for awakening? And can we look at those? And can we examine if we can speed those up? I'm always looking for the faster way, the more direct way, the simplest way. Simple always worked for me, and simple things can be relied upon when you absolutely need them. So what is metaphorically drawing back those curtains? What is it that's going to allow the light of what you really are, the wisdom, the compassion, the peace, the knowledge, all of that to shine through your body and mind? What is it that those beings have done or become or reached where awakening has happened? And if we look at it, it's one common factor all the way through. And that is a willingness, a total willingness to consider the fact that nothing at all, ourselves, the world, the divine, everything, that perhaps everything we think is not the ultimate truth. Perhaps every experience we're having is not the ultimate truth. In beings that have come to this willingness, and notice I'm not saying they have to let go of all those thoughts. What I'm saying is they came to a perfect willingness, an openness that happened in a moment or developed over time, but reached a certain point, an openness and a willingness to question everything that we've believed to be true. Everything that we believe to be true, we're going to keep experiencing. Such is the power of what we really are. And that when we finally reach a place where we're willing to say, you know what, I may have got all of this wrong, actually, I may be something completely different to what I thought. The world may be something completely different to what I thought. And maybe everything I thought isn't the ultimate truth. To question our most, to be willing to question our most prized assumptions, that perhaps even the awakening takes a long time or it's difficult. You know, what assumptions are we holding on to that we keep experiencing? And why are we protecting these assumptions? Really, because if we look at the prerequisite for awakening as an open mind, a willingness to see how things actually are, to see what we really are, rather than what we think we are. Because we can either experience reality or we can experience what we think reality is. We can either experience what we actually are or we can experience what we think about that self that we are. And for some of us, we reach that openness and willingness out of a cultivation of curiosity, excitement, passion to see what is real, a kind of dispassion for our normal way of life. Perhaps there's an empty feeling inside, a hole that we can't fill, and there's just a curiosity to see what actually is real. And perhaps for others, they come to something like satsang out of an absolute sense of suffering. Perhaps their idea about themselves and the world has just got so small, so constricting, so not enough, so limiting, that we find ourselves in satsang willing to question what we thought is true out of necessity. And probably for most of us, it's some mixture of those. And what takes the time, what it leads up to awakening, is developing this willingness. And the moment we develop this willingness, we become very grace prone, we become very open to a seeing. The seeing isn't something we can make happen, but we can put ourselves in a really, really good position to make it happen, to allow it to happen. You don't have to do anything to let the sun shine through the window, but you do have to pull the curtains back, and then the sun automatically shines. Each belief that we're holding on to with intensity is coloring our experience of reality, is filtering it, is watering it down, diluting the beautiful nature that everything really is, including yourself. So why do we keep holding on to these assumptions, and why does it take so long? And can we do something about that? What does it take to develop this open mind, this willingness to finally say, you know what, I don't know if anything I've assumed about myself is actually real. And for that not to be a terrifying thing, for that to be an exciting thing, for that to be something that gives you optimism and feels really, really good in your body when you consider, I may not know anything in actuality. I may have gathered these beliefs to me. Some of them came with the body, preloaded software on the body. Some of them we've kind of picked up along the way through experience. But the ones that we're not willing to question, why is that? the ones that we keep experiencing over and over again. What can we do about it? Well, if we look at what we really feel is true, if we look at what we're really, really convinced of, it'll be because we keep experiencing it over and over. Our mind says, I feel justified in the way I think and feel about myself because I keep experiencing it to be true. But what if that's not right? What if that is the very basis of our suffering right there? What if we actually keep experiencing these situations because we believe it's true? What if a willingness in any moment to totally let go of all ideas and a complete, perfect openness? Just a moment where I'm willing to say, I really don't know what's true. I don't know what's true about me. I don't know what's true about the world. I certainly don't know what's true about the self, about the divine. Then we're wide open in that moment to experience something. And to the extent that we're open, we're not guarding these assumptions, these beliefs inside ourselves, then the real self naturally reveals itself. The truth becomes obvious in that moment. Again, we didn't do anything for that. We were just willing to be open. So if the time to really wake up fully is really the time it takes us to be willing to let go of all our assumptions, then we can do something about that. If awakening itself was hard and difficult and quite often didn't happen, then there's nothing we can do about that. But if awakening happens 100% of the time that a being reaches this openness, then it's right back in our hands, isn't it? It's right back in our, it's something that we can begin to work with. When I realized this, it really began to give me a sense of hope that I wasn't just kind of sitting around waiting for grace to come find me, and that there was nothing I can do about it. I really began to work on this willingness and this questioning of why I was holding on to certain assumptions. And we're more than willing usually to let go of certain assumptions. It's the ones that we really seem to keep experiencing that we don't want to let go of. Perhaps there's some idea inside that, like I said, it takes a very long time to wake up. Or perhaps there's some idea that it might not happen for me. I might not be able to get there, to achieve it, to live as that truth. Some idea that it's rare, that it's difficult. And we've seen that humanity's been experiencing that for a long time. Perhaps there's some belief that we're not good enough, that we're not evolved enough yet to experience full seeing. Maybe some idea that waking up will mean I won't be able to look after my children or do my job or run my business or whatever it is that we're doing. I won't be interested in normal life after awakening. All these ideas are inside us, either through myths and legends that we've heard, previous examples, and our own doubts and fears inside. Maybe we feel deep down that waking up is going to cost us too much. It's going to mean letting go of our most cherished and prized thoughts. But really just the willingness is all we have to be responsible for. Because once we're willing to question if these things are actually true, the things that we're thinking about ourselves, that we're not good enough, that we're never going to wake up, that we've been doing this for 20 years, if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. Something like these things. The moment we're willing to question even these, these ones that I hear over and over again, I just can't seem to stay as the self. I have this seeing, but then I go right back into ego. That exact experience is happening because of this conviction in the belief and not the other way around. So we're finally willing to question even these things that we feel are the highest of spiritual problems. How do I wake up? How do I live as this? How do I embody this? How do I deepen in this? I just can't seem to do those. In that moment of willingness, there is a space, there is a gap for the light of the self to begin to shine through. And when the light of the self begins to shine through, we have an aha moment or a seeing, and then we see that our beliefs are just not so. The more that we see our beliefs are not really true, the more willing we are to let go. So the bigger the gap is, and the more the light is able to shine through. And the more the light shines through, the clearer it is that these beliefs were never true. We just kept experiencing them. And that awakening is a natural state in the birthright of every human being. And the bigger this gap, the more the seeing can happen effortlessly and spontaneously. So the faster it gets, the faster it gets. The more you see what you really are, the more you want to give up and let go of these old ideas about yourself. The more you let go of these old ideas about yourself, the greater the willingness is, the faster the awakening is happening. What starts all of this off, what really begins to make it actually occur, is this willingness. And that is something you can cultivate. That is something you can come to in a moment. Maybe in some satsang somewhere, in some time, or some book you read, or something a teacher says, just really pushes a button and ignites a fire inside that says, I really want to experience that. I really want to know what that is. Or some sense of excitement, or just a moment of realizing that maybe I am so much more than I've ever imagined I could be. Maybe there is so much more to me than I've been able to understand and experience as yet. And that perfect willingness is not something that takes years. It's really more about an attitude. And it's right in your control, that is. Simply by cultivating a willingness and an openness. And also looking at which beliefs you don't want to let go of. Usually it's some deep conviction that we're not good enough, some feeling that we're not safe, some feeling that it's never going to happen for us, some feeling that I know what this world is and I know what the self is, or some sense that we know that we're not awakened yet with absolute conviction, certain that we're not there yet. And it's held onto with such ferocity that even sometimes when we have a seeing of the self, when it reveals itself, we grab right back onto this familiar belief afterwards, that there's further to go, there's more work to do, that I can't already absolutely be that perfection, appearing as a human being, as a seeker. So what are you holding on to? Which are your most prized assumptions and beliefs? And are you willing to see if they're actually true? Even if we've been experiencing them all of our lives, they may have never actually been true. Just that willingness right there is pulling back these curtains. Maybe nothing I thought at all ever about myself is real. Maybe my mind has been conditioned by my previous unfulfilled desires, by my experiences in life, by my family patterns, by my social situations, by the world at large. Maybe none of it's really ever ultimately been how it actually is, or how I actually am. Maybe you've never actually met yourself, ever. Strange thing to say, isn't it? But at some point I came to this realization inside myself. I don't know at all who I am. I only know what I think about myself. I only know where I think I am on the pathway. I only know what I'm sure of, that at that time was that it was just never going to happen, that I wasn't good enough for it anyway. Those beings where awakening has happened spontaneously and effortlessly, they came to this willingness to admit that they've been completely and utterly wrong about everything. And it wasn't a burden, it wasn't something that was terrible, it wasn't something that was depressing at that point. It was something wonderful, it was an opening. It was the gateway into the kingdom of heaven or Nirvana or whatever we're calling it. And curiosity is something that we can all develop. We can begin to cultivate an opening. And every time we suffer, anything negative happens to us, any trigger happens in our world, any strong negative emotion inside, we can use it to fuel this curiosity, to find out really what we are, to actually experience it, to live as that. What if it wasn't difficult at all? What if it didn't take a long time at all? What if it happened spontaneously and effortlessly the moment you came to a point where you're willing to let go of everything? And then to live as that was really to begin to let go and stay open in this space, to just stay open, to never again want to assume anything about yourself or anyone else or the world or God. That is an attitude rather than something that we do. That's a way of being. That's a way of coming to our awakening, to our life, to our satsang. And as such is much more easily achievable than having to have the right karma or all these other things we think need to happen to wake up. So each great being that has woken up in the past has really done all that they've done different to perhaps what most human beings do, is to be willing to question what everyone else takes for granted, that maybe it doesn't take a long time. What's it like when I don't believe that? What's it like when I don't believe that I'm not good enough to get there? What's it like when I don't believe it takes a long time to transcend all my conditioned mind? What's it like when I refuse to believe there is anything else for me to do before I can wake up, or anything I need to become or get rid of? What's it like when I'm willing to question what the rest of the world is, what everyone else is that I see and experience? What's it like when I decide that I really don't know anything for certain and I'd like to actually find out? So I hope you're really getting this inside, that it's more of an attitude, it's something that we can develop rather than something we do. If it was something we had to do to wake up, then we could do it wrong, or it could take a long time. But it's something we be. We literally step into our awakening when we're ready to let go. Just for a second at first. What if nothing at all I've imagined about myself? What if nothing I've experienced has been the ultimate reality? No matter how beautiful or ugly each experience is, what if it's not the truth? What if there is something about me that is here all the time, and only to come to this total willingness is the prerequisite? And it's not really that hard to do when we look, because most of us have really lived out the experience of believing these thoughts again and again and again. And if you're anything like I was, you've come to the end of that. You can't tolerate another go around these beliefs again. So if you stop for a moment and just ask, what really is true? What is actually real about me? With a willingness to not filter that at all. And you can go back to these beliefs again afterwards if you want to. If you experience reality for a moment and you don't like it, you're more than able to pick up these beliefs again. So you get to try before you buy. So I'd really like to encourage you to cultivate this attitude, this openness, this willingness to see. That is all it takes when we're as innocent as a child again, as open as a child again. You know, a child doesn't know anything. You know, when a young child goes about their day, they're just excited to experience everything. They don't have any set ideas about how anything is going to go at all, or about themselves, or any of that. Just because we're adults, just because we are worldly wise now, doesn't mean we can't set that aside. That can be our plan B, that can be our backup plan. We can access that worldly knowledge when we need it, you know, of all the relative names and forms and all of that. But it's much more beautiful to just live in this openness, this complete, unassuming, very, very simple nature that is the real self. It doesn't have any preferences or kind of opinions about anything, doesn't know anything for certain, and doesn't want to know. It's kind of much more open to experiencing what everything actually is. And this is something we can step into right in this moment. What if you just were determined for a moment to experience what you actually are? That really is the only prerequisite. And then life will ask you if you want to remain like that, if you want to stay open. So you really needn't take that long or be that hard. What takes the time traditionally is to get to that point of willingness. Sometimes we experience something in our life that really pushes us to that point of willingness. And sometimes it develops seemingly by itself. Either way, it doesn't matter. But it's absolutely in our control. What really are you? Have you ever really seen? Have you ever actually met yourself? You're not a limited or small being at all, and you're not burdened by time or karma or progress. You're not burdened by life or death. You weren't ever born, and you're not going to die, ever. You existed before time. You're everywhere. You're indivisible. You are before form, and you're appearing as all of these forms, and you will go on forever. Okay, so I will open it up for questions. If anybody would like to share or to ask a question, you're more than welcome to. If you want to ask something or share, if you are not familiar with Zoom, you can click on participants at the bottom of your screen and scroll down to the bottom there and click on raise hand, and it'll let me know that you want to share or ask a question. Okay, so we'll get started with Diane whenever you're ready.
Hello.
Hiya, how are you doing?
Wow. So I just want to share like what's been happening during this talk is that there is a lot of like anger and frustration and uh, like I'm not really typically I don't typically experience those things, but like I'm not sure exactly where it's coming from.
okay. Maybe it just needs to come to the surface. Maybe it's just some trapped energies in there that need
Yeah.
some space.
And like, I don't have a lot of, at least I'm not aware if I have those kinds of beliefs and concepts that you're discussing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not at a level that I'm aware of. And like, I feel like I've been kind of doing meditation and stuff for a bit of time, but only after something came to me and said, "You have to wake up." And I'm thinking about how, like, when we're in a deep sleep, we don't know we're asleep until somebody says, "Yo, it's time to get up, go to work. You have to wake up now." And then it's just like, I don't know what's going on. Prior to that, it's all just good. You're just sleeping. um, so there was that thing, and then like, it was a pleasant space for a long time. And then I kind of like learned about awakening, which it's not ever something I was trying to do or anything I was looking for. And um, like, this life that I'm in now has never made very much sense because I don't care about all of the things that people care about. I went to school, but not because I cared about anything, just because they told me I was supposed to do that. I don't have a subject that I'm really interested in, and it never made sense to me why people would spend all their lives like studying and studying and learning and learning. But it's for what? Like, so then when I'm here and I'm listening, and like there's some place I'm supposed to go or something I'm supposed to do, like I don't get it, and I'm not determined for anything. I don't have that, like, oh, I'm determined to wake up. I'm not. I'm just here. And so it's frustrating to feel like now I'm supposed, like, I've never known what I'm supposed to do all this time. Everything has happened. I've raised children. I've been married. I've been divorced. I've done numerous things. Um, Maybe during the time of the doing, I felt like I was doing something. Um, but I'm tired of all of the words and the concepts and the ideas of doing or not doing, and I don't feel like I'm trying to be awake or not be awake. I'm just here, and like every kind of, I wasn't studying teaching until I, like, I guess I thought, I don't know, like I keep, you know how YouTube does, it says, here, this is good for you. This is,
You start off with one
so,
video on YouTube, and 10 videos later, you think, where did that 2 hours go? Yeah.
yes. And like every teacher has a different flavor, and every teaching has a different texture, and it's like none of those are the texture of me. I'm the only one. I'm the texture that I need. I'm the one. And there's nothing out there that's going to bring it. I know this already. I'm already here. I'm already this. And the words frustrate me because they never represent the thing that they're intended to represent. They just,
And they never can. They can only hope to inspire or point, can't they, towards
yeah.
our real self.
So this being is not really, I don't resonate with the words, and it's like, so there's the frustration in the talk, in the language, in the idea of trying to get someplace, or lifting a veil, or opening curtains, or anything like that. I just don't. And if I'm sounding like I'm just kind of ranting, I guess that's just what's happening.
You said you're just here, and that's perfect, isn't it? If you're peaceful, that's absolutely perfect. Yeah. And that's enough, isn't it, in itself? Yeah.
There are a couple of things too that came to mind as you were talking, and like if sometimes perhaps I just, I'm just sitting here, I think I'm relaxed, and then maybe my son will come and touch my shoulder, or I have this one son who kind of gives me a massage sometimes, which is very nice, and I think, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was so tense. I thought I was already relaxed, but then somebody touched me, and then it's like, that, and
maybe that frustration then is just a little sign that there might be a little more peace, might be just a little more joy that we can, and sometimes the purpose of the words is to really, really irritate you into, I'm not experiencing that really. I want to experience deeper peace or something. It certainly was for me. It was never some beautiful bliss that drove me. It was jealousy in the end. Like, what's it like to be totally free? I want that too. And sometimes the words really do frustrate you because they poke at a corner inside us that's kind of maybe not admitting that there might be more to see, there might be deeper to experience. Not more as in further, to try to get somewhere, but might be even more depth of your being to explore. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Sure. Can I share one more thing?
Yeah.
I have 4 children, and all of them came into the world pretty easily. The last one at his birth, there was just a little something, he wasn't coming out quite. There's, and I was like, I know what I'm doing here. I've done this 3 times before, and my midwife kept saying, curve your pelvis, curve it, and she kept doing this, and I was like, I'm curved, I know what I'm doing. And then there was this instant where I curved, the pelvis curved. I didn't really do it, but it happened.
It just happened.
And then the baby just slipped right out. It's like, oh, I don't know what happened, but apparently I thought I was doing what she was asking me to do.
And that's a metaphor for our awakening, isn't it, really? It's I thought I was open, I thought I was curious, but really then it actually happens.
So I love that I was so cognitive of that experience at the time that it happened. It's been 20 years since that time now, but it was a very beautiful analogy to.
And I think that's what the frustration is kind of pointing at to me, that there might just be some more inside there that can open up a little bit more. There's always more to experience, and that's probably what the frustration is, just some we sometimes reach a place where we stagnate a little bit, and maybe we don't even realize that until some frustration arises, and then this urge for, well, let me see if there's deeper I can experience, just comes up like that. And wonderful. Lovely. Okay. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Lovely. Okay, we'll go to Sissy, who's next.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi, everyone. That was really beautiful, and I just recently discovered you on that cat, Buddha at the gas pump. So, and I was really intrigued by your simple teaching, and I practiced so far. What else do I hear, and what am I reading? And my question is, I have an assumption that I have earrings.
That you have what? Sorry, assumption that you have what?
Earrings, the sound, the noise. And I wonder, how can I include that in the practice of who am I really? What else do I hear? Because there are others that have also chronic discomforts. And I just wanted to know more about these earrings what's in my head. I'm sorry, I'm from the Netherlands, so my English is not perfect.
It's not your English. Your English is brilliant. It's really quite muffled. I'm struggling to understand just run it through me one more time, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah.
So I practice what else do I hear.
Yep.
It helps me to go away from the earrings, and I practice what am I really, and I understand that I'm infinite. It's running, it's running what comes up. And I wonder, how can I include the earrings in my practice? Can I make that as a practice?
Well, I would say if something is already working for you,
Yeah.
stay with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else can I hear? Is that really sort of opening you up? Are you feeling a deeper experience from that of yourself?
Yes. Not when it's very loud as now, but when it's a little bit less, then I can move away from the earrings. But when it's heavy, when it's very in front of where it's in my face, then it's difficult to stay with it.
Okay. So it might be worthwhile just kind of looking at. I would continue with what's working to start off with.
Yeah.
Really stay with that, because you'll feel intuitively pulled to what is working already. Whatever certain question for myself just really felt alive inside, and it really began to gather pace, gather momentum. A question, like I've been asking it for a while. It just began to open up. This willingness was developing with the question that we were talking about, and just really to look at any seeming resistance that comes up. Resistance can come up as a bodily sensation or pain, or it can be some thoughts, or it can be some emotion that comes up. If something like that is coming up for you, then you might just want to change the question when something resistance comes up. A question for me that was powerful as well is why don't I want to see? What don't I want to hear as well? Some sort of the other side of that coin, to go around. I was aware for quite some time there was some resistance coming up that I couldn't quite get to grips with. So I just began to, the what else can I hear was this beautiful opening, and what really am I was this opening, and then I'd hit this it's almost like an energetic barrier inside of it. I don't feel I can go any further. So I just began to go, why don't I want to hear? What don't I want to hear? Or something like that. Can you get a sense of it inside?
I feel now emotional in my in my belly and in my. I want to cry now. So I understand there's something more that I can.
Yeah. Just to ask from that open place of, why don't I want to look at this? I mean, obviously the bigger part of you does, but some part is inside is protecting this emotion or this resistance, and doesn't want to go deeper, doesn't want to continue to explore. And that's natural, isn't it? Some part is working towards your awakening, and some energy is kind of going, we're going a bit too far here or something, so it starts to go, oh, so just to gently understand that there's part of us that is going to be trying to keep things the same. It's not, it just needs to be understood that that's all it's trying to do. It's trying to protect us, and just to understand it, whether we're calling it ego or mind, whatever, it just wants to keep things the same. And if we don't push against that, then we'll just gently go beyond it and open up. So question is really helpful, as you've seen. What is it that I don't want to see, or what don't I want to experience, or something like that, and it'll just gently come. What you felt already, there's a little opening and experience, and usually it's some emotion or something, or just some. For me, sometimes it felt like a feeling in the body, like a heaviness on my heart, or something that just an old sadness or pain or something like that, that just needed to be looked at. It uses some idea that it's going to be too difficult to experience this emotion, or it's going to be too strong, or something like that that's being believed. But the real self can handle any emotion like that, anything that comes up. It can just lovingly work with it in that openness. Do you get a sense of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good.
I can work with it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very good question. Thank you. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. Thank you.
Okay, we go to Mike.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
So when you talk about, am I ever going to wake up? Will it happen for me? Does it help or not help that I don't have a real clear, concise definition of what awakening actually is and don't have a vision of it? I mean, I feel like on the one hand, it's a good thing because then I'll never really know if I know. On the other hand, how will I know? Because it's not quite clear. It's never been. I don't really have one that I'm
I
referencing.
personally feel it's a very good thing to not know what awakening is. Most of the ideas I had to, assumptions I had to undo with this about awakening itself. It'll be like this or it'll be like that, and I'll know when I'm there because fill in the blank, so just a love of what's true. Just to love what's true. And the beautiful thing is you don't have to know what that is. Just a very pure and simple love for a desire for to experience what you actually are. That's like a compass needle pointing straight north, and you won't ever go wrong with that, because nothing can get in the way of that.
It sounds like a paradox what you said, to love what's true, but you don't ever really know what that is, to just want to know what you are, but you'll never know what that is. So it's just to
it's a
live in
paradox
that free fall.
It's a paradox.
Yeah.
We can't know it in the traditional way. I could sit here and tell you all kinds of things about the self, but it wouldn't get you any closer to experiencing it. Or we could work on experiencing it, and then some knowing may come afterwards as a side effect of that. Some ahas, and and all of that will happen from the inside out. So as you've seen already, the more you let go of assumptions, the more you experience what you actually are. That may never be something that you could sit and explain to someone. Oh yeah, the self is like this. You can only really say what it isn't, in words and language, as we were saying before. But you can love what is true just because it's true. And it's just like as a child, Christmas Eve, it's Christmas Day the next day, you were really excited about the presents you were going to get, but you didn't know what was in them. You don't need to know what's in there to decide whether you want them or not, do you? It's kind of just a knowing it's going to be something better than I'm experiencing right now. That's kind of enough to keep you pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, it's like the knowing is enough, but you don't know what you know. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, ultimately, you don't know anything. There's a knowingness now for me that none of my thoughts were ever true, and that what I really am, I can never know in that way with the mind. I'm just experiencing it in an ever deeper way. And the urge to know it through the mind falls away when we recognize we can either know about it, or we can be it. So the assumptions, the willingness to let go of the assumptions we were talking about before is really usually a lot about what it takes to get there, what it's going to be like when I am awake, and what what my life will be like afterwards. We all have these assumptions about that.
Would you say that it's more important to be than know, or are they both the same?
Always be first, and then the knowing will come on its own effortlessly. If we try to know it first in the usual conceptual way, which of course we all do until we've realized that doesn't work, then that can get in the way. And the highest thought we can have is to understand the limits of thought. The highest place the human intellect can go is to realize the intellect can never experience the self, because it can only know about things. So to be it, or to recognize, I should say, that you're always being it, that you are it, and what, just to experience it is going to allow that knowingness that we wanted anyway. Understanding will come, but not something I've understood about the self, with a separation in it. It'll be just a spontaneous understanding beginning to happen from that place of already being that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Good, lovely, thank you. Okay, Ian and Maggie.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, not so bad.
Good.
When I was, can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were talking in the Satsang, I was really just trying to let the words kind of wash over without doing anything with it, kind of stance.
You were trying to be effortless.
I was, trying to be effortless. Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm joking, it's okay.
No, you're right. And I had this kind of a moment where all that kind of feeling closed and feeling open and all this kind of to and fro and that you do sometimes. Well,
I never did that ever.
No, I know you're the exception. Yeah. There was like a real moment of, oh, that's all. How can I not be the self? How can I not ever be the self? And all this open and closing is just kind of irrelevant in a way.
It's kind of necessary, isn't it, along the pathway, I guess, to get to that realization. But then there will be that realization. My mind is the one that's open or closed.
Mm.
Myself is always the same, isn't it? My real self.
Mm. But it sparked this question that I asked you quite recently, and maybe I didn't get. It sparked the curiosity in that what actually kind of, 1 minute you're kind of thinking things are a certain way and you're trying to work out, seeing your beliefs and all things, your karmic patterns and all this kind of stuff. And then suddenly you're willing to just, something almost like a penny drops and you suddenly just, and you suddenly open up and you suddenly start to question these things. But I'm still curious about, I don't understand why that happens. Why does that suddenly kind of, why do you suddenly just have that insight and just suddenly start fighting something? Is that one of them daft questions?
There could be several reasons, and there's no real reason I can absolutely say. Maybe you let go of one assumption that was really massive, and suddenly there was an openness available. Could say maybe the self was just done suffering. We could say that maybe your inquiry reached a certain intensity that began to really gather pace and momentum.
Mm.
Or maybe it was just going to happen anyway, or maybe all of the above.
Yeah, okay.
So
I don't really have to understand how it's happened. It's just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gradually, naturally the self is always moving towards, in a manifestation, it's always moving towards more. So in our seekingness, it's always looking for more openness, more clarity, more wisdom, more love, more peace, more joy, etc. All of that, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that drive is inherent in all of life. More, you know, nature grows everywhere it can, and that drive is the essence of life, isn't it? The expansion of life, and that's happening as a human being, as my seekingness. I'm not really a human being seeking, I am the self, and I'm always trying to expand. So when it feels like constriction of some assumption, some belief that's just too tight, and it's just so tired of experiencing it again and again, it will drop it. Why that happens, when it happens, who knows? That's one thing I can't really say. There could be all sort of things that contributed towards it, but you know, it's just one of those things, isn't it? That for me, it just felt like there was a point where I just couldn't take the suffering anymore. Couldn't take, not necessarily the suffering, but the monotony of going around and around these same old experiences, you know, and watching it happen again and again. It was just too painful.
Yeah.
There's only so many times you can watch the same movie with the same outcome and have any interest in it at all, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, there was something, I will drop that kind of, there was kind of a wish to really understand what was going on, but I guess I don't need to.
It's kind of a sliding scale. Less and less are we wanting to know with the mind, and more there's an openness to experience. And maybe that reaches a tipping point at some point where it's just, you know what, I'm never going to figure it out with the mind. That's not really working. And
Yeah.
It might not be a conscious realization. Maybe something just shifts inside.
Yeah.
You know.
Great. Thank you.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome. Fantastic. Okay, we'll go to Shafali. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Hi, this is Shifali. Sorry, my video is not on.
That's okay.
But
Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. So I'm really thankful of basically, finding your satsangs and videos on YouTube. And so my question was that I have been on this journey really long, and I do meditation regularly, morning and evening. And that meditation I do is associated with a guru. And it is changing things in me, and I can feel it. And I've got glimpses into, who this really I am, the soul experience, which is very hard to put in words, but being at that rest for those few seconds, and despite everything going on, just being at rest, and just feeling complete. And I mean, hard to put in words, but that is just the glimpses. Majority of my day goes in a constant feeling of needing something or chasing something. It is so tiring. It is so tiring. I can't tell you. So, I mean, I'm sure you know what I mean. So
I remember, yes.
Right? And I don't know when this is going to stop, but is there a way, despite being busy in life with office work and all, can this chasing stop? Right? What can I do?
That's it's a question that's very close to my heart, because it was like that for me. It was these brief glimpses of this beautiful place that just felt like home, and was all you want to do is stay there when you experience it, and then you're kind of thrown back into the noise of the mind, aren't you, afterwards? And the thing that finally worked for me was to look at these needs and wants. You know, you were saying that there's this feeling of needing something.
Yeah.
And I would start with the strongest need. What is it that I think, or I am convinced that I need? Because these are the assumptions I was talking about, you know, in the talk to start off with. If I'm experience something beautiful and peaceful and restful for a moment, and then it seems to disappear, the thought is going to arise that I need to get that back. I want that back, or I want peace, or whatever it is that we you know, whatever the feeling is inside, some sense of wanting, or if it's got intense enough, some sense of need. So if we can look at what it is we feel we need, I want to go back to the self, or I need to find peace, then we can begin to question that. The very assumption that we've lost it, that beautiful place that is the real self, the very idea that we need to get back there, is reinforcing the experience of not being there. So
Yeah.
the way to get out of that is to question, is it really true I have lost that place? Or is it really true I need peace? Even though we seem to be experiencing that in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that real place is there. Every time we sit to meditate, or every time we self-inquire, we can access it more and more. It's not going away. What is changing is some sense of need comes up, and that seems to eclipse that place, doesn't it? We seem to lose the sense of it. So in that moment, you can say, what do I seem to need? And for me, it was peace. You know, it seemed to be, I'd experience it for a moment and then it would go, or love, or whatever it is that we're seeking. Even we can just say that it's the self. I want to get back to the self. Well, is it really true that I need that? Let me even be willing to question that assumption. Even though it's happening to me right now and I'm feeling disturbed and I feel like I've lost it, let me be willing to question even that right now. Let me not go with that, even though it seems to really make sense to want it back. And something will begin to open in that you begin to challenge the assumption that I've lost it, it's gone. And that very assumption, because you are so powerful as the self, if you believe that it's gone and you've lost it, you'll go around and around trying to get it back. That very effort to get back to it is what's disturbing you, you see. Can you get a sense of it?
Totally makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That is so true. The constant thought of not having it, because it didn't come from anywhere, right? It was right here. So it didn't like pop up and just went out. I think it is my chasing. It's like chasing the tail, like of a dog, right? That
So
is
you
so
can,
beautiful.
You can see, of course you're going to want that. When you've experienced it, of course you're going to want to stay there. But the best way to stay there is not to believe that you have to do anything to get back to it, or that you have lost it. Mind will say those things, because from mind's perspective, that seems to be what's happening, doesn't it? But when the real self, when we experience it, it's effortless to just notice it, isn't it? In that moment, it's effortless. You didn't do anything. You just kind of stopped disturbing yourself for a moment with ideas, and there it is. So how to turn that seeking into experiencing and being it is usually the best way for me was with a question. Is it really gone? Actually, have I really lost it? Actually, can I really do anything to get back there? And do I really need to? Any of these questions are very, very powerful. And the trick is to be willing to ask the question, even when you're actually experiencing having lost it, when the assumption is playing and it seems to be gone. And the more I dove into this question, the less obscured the self seemed to be, and the less I could believe that I could lose it. And guess what's going to happen when you can't believe anymore that you experienced it and then it's gone, that you can lose it? When you can no longer entertain that thought at all, that you can lose this beautiful place, it's going to be your constant experience. So it's worth putting this energy into the question. There's never going to be a good time to start this. Mind will say, well, of course you've lost it. Look how you feel, right now. You feel disturbed. Yeah. So you just go, okay, you know what? I'm going to ask it anyway and see what happens.
No, thank you so much, because I do try to go to that place, and there are times I'm successful, but I don't think in the right way. So in the questioning, I think that will do it, because whenever I have contemplated with your satsangs, I have always gone to peace, sometimes quickly, sometimes it takes times because of the clutter. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Good, good. Let me know how you get on with that. I'm excited to hear.
I will do that. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, last but not least is Sharon.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm just going through something different. I don't know how long it's been, but I'm crying a lot. And I was telling Maggie, I went on both of the sanghas today, and it was helpful. But the cry, I don't know if I said it in Maggie's group, but I did say it this morning. And the best I can say is that my defenses are breaking down.
Good.
Because that is what.
To love. Huh?
Yeah, that's really what we want. So, how do I deal with the husband that if he comes home and I'm crying, he'll say, well, what are you upset about? Well, yesterday I was crying, and he said, well, maybe it's spiritual. I couldn't believe he said that. And so when our defenses break down, those defenses were built to protect us, especially as a child. I had a very hard time as a child.
Yeah.
And now I just feel like a child again. But I don't feel like a happy one all the time. I feel like...
Can you accept that some part of you is going to be really happy about these defenses breaking down, and some part of you is going to be really scared by it?
Yeah, that's what I feel like, Helen. Because, I have a fear of, like everyone has the same fears, really. I mean, none of us want to be mentally ill, but, I've experienced that in my life with depression. I'm not at all depressed. Not at all.
Yeah.
I don't feel depression one bit. I just keep crying for nothing. And I just, the day helped me so much because I wrote her yesterday and she said it was a good thing. And then all of a sudden, then the ego comes in and just chatters away. Everybody's going to know what you're really like, because as a little girl, I just hid so much.
Yeah. But we can, the essence of being a self, living as a self consciously, of being that love, is to understand the ego, to understand the egoic perspective. Yeah. So we can accept that some part of you is really scared by this opening. Another part is quite excited, and perhaps another part is just silently watching it all, and you don't have to choose. You don't have to choose.
And it's normal to cry like that? I mean, I know that I saw Diane crying.
When blocks finally started to come away for me, like fear of being authentically who I am, there was this big feeling of, or I might do something stupid in the moment. I might, I can't be authentic and spontaneous because I can't control that. All these kind of fears come up in that, don't they? So when they finally started to break down, I've been trying to let them go, and it finally started to break down. There's a tremendous relief that it was happening. It was finally happening anyway, despite my best resistance. It was finally coming away, as in all the things I do to try to keep myself, to try to keep myself and anyone else from really knowing me, that kind of thing that goes on inside us, that finally began to come away. And there was nothing I could do to stop it at that point. And it was really exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, and I guess I just needed to say that. And, one of my ridiculous thoughts is, I'm so stupid because the trauma I suffered as a child, that's what I felt like. And, my computer, like you'll see tomorrow, and it goes in and out on the video. So I don't want to be rude. I don't want anybody to think that I'm this or that. And nobody's thinking about me. Nobody can, because it's all them. So I don't know. And I know all that. But now I'm just going deeper, and I can feel it. I have a lot of opening in my head, almost like the chakra's moving down. And as it's moving down, these tears, and you would think I would be like, yay, I'm waking up. But instead, my ego's so strong, and it's saying, oh, no, you're just getting depressed. You're just, you're crazy.
There is a kind of an aspect to the ego dissolving. For me, there was this energy that felt very redundant. From ego's perspective, it thought it had to run the show. It thought it was responsible for my happiness, my existence, all of that. And then suddenly it begins to realize that's not so. And it's kind of like, well, what's the point then? What am I here for? From this egoic sense of self, it didn't have a purpose or a function anymore in that way. So it began, there was a little bit of friction as it broke down in a way, you know, to kind of, it did not want to let go of the seeking, you know, the trying to get somewhere and just start to be, because it was kind of, well, what am I going to do then? I'm unemployed, you know. So that there can be that kind of, you know, the most of us is open and wants to let go, wants to experience reality, but the other part just really doesn't. And it's fine, isn't it? It's absolutely fine that that's there, and it doesn't need to even disappear to wake up fully, to see completely. Is the self is never going to force anything to occur, and it can't. It just lovingly holds that what's left of the separate sense of self and says it's absolutely okay. How you feel is valid and okay, and there's nothing that anyone's going to do to make that go away, you know, least of all the self. So there's finally space then for this, who knows how long, of all this trying to be happy, to be safe. The pent up energies around that begin to come out. For me, there was a lot of relief, you know, relief that it was finally happening after trying for so long, you know, and tears of fear as well, you know, this is happening, but it's a little bit weird, and, you know, it's gathering pace, and I'm not so sure I want it to go this fast, even though I've spent the last 25 years saying I want it to go this fast, you know.
Yeah, I
There's
feel
all
that
kind
it's,
of emotions coming up. It's
yeah, and I don't know what the emotions are. Like when I wrote the day, I said I have no reason to be sad. There's absolutely nothing in my life that's not going right now, and it just seems like I'm just.
it's just these old energies of wanting for so long and feeling so lost for so long.
Yeah.
When we start to experience the love of the self, the reality of the self, the compassion, the wisdom, we start to really live as that more, then this sadness can come up. And for me, it was like a grieving. There was a grieving going on inside. Something was
That's what it
kind of,
is.
yeah, a letting go of.
Yeah,
Everything
that's what
I
it.
thought about myself was no longer kind of valid. I was experiencing more and more. But it was from the self, it's just allowed to happen. These energies come up and they might come out as tears. I think I spent about 3 days continuously yawning. Sometimes I'd hiccups. Sometimes I'd do some stretching, laughing, crying. Sometimes all those things at once, kind of, you know. The
Right.
body knows what to do to let go of these things. It's very clever in that way, isn't it?
So it's a good thing. I should thank, that's what I said last night to the new, I said, whatever, Newman, thank you, I'm grateful. And,
it's a good thing, but it doesn't have to feel good, and you don't have to enjoy it. That's the perfect place to be in. I'll let
it's
this
so
happen
funny.
while it's happening, but I don't have to. I'm never going to feel happy about all this emotion pouring out, am I? But I can accept it and let it occur to the best of my ability.
Right.
Yeah.
You had said one of the reasons why humans suffer is they want to be happy. And I had a lot of masks through my life. I owned my own art school. I was like a Mary Poppins kind of person. And now I'm like unveiling all of that. And behind it, it's all this like, this very sad little girl, and I'm just trying to just see that this is all part of what everyone goes through. Every sage goes through this. It's not necessarily fun, but it's, it's happening.
There was a sadness for me that for, well, 35 years at that point, I hadn't ever been authentically me, but I didn't even know what that was. Like, it's so far left of, or so far removed from who Helen actually was spontaneously, and so much this manufactured thing that I thought was necessary to be safe, to be accepted, and we all do this, of course. We assume a role of who we think we need to be loved, to be safe, and all of that, don't we? And so when I finally saw that there was this sadness inside that had to come out, just the sense of I don't even know who I am, not in the kind of grandiose way of the self, just I don't know who Helen is. I don't know what she likes. I don't know what she wants. She's been so busy pleasing people and trying to be safe that. But then as I was allowed, it turned into a kind of a joy and a curiosity. Well, I can find out now. I can find out,
Thank you so much, because that's exactly what I'm going through, and I think it's a good thing. I think that you would look at it as a positive. So.
I do, but it doesn't have to feel good. It's not going to feel good, is it? But it can be peaceful if we're accepting it. as well.
Yes, it can be peaceful, but you know, it's just weird. The tears just keep. I mean, I go for walks with my dog, and I'm just like crying, and you know, and then you know, I don't have a story. Usually, there's a story behind it. You know.
There's just so much emotional charge for most of us. It's been suppressed in the tissues, in the body, you know, because we couldn't face it before. We absolutely couldn't, from that place of being a separate being. So it just comes out, whichever way it comes out, and that is a good thing. That there's a releasing going on, but you don't have to. You're never going to be jumping up and down and going, "Yay!" You know, this is happening. So you need to be kind to yourself like that. I don't have to enjoy it or like it, but I'm gonna just let it happen. And this is authentically you in this moment, isn't it? The tears. There's an authenticity about it, which is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling all the feelings that you know, these defenses are just, you know, if somebody would have told me that I was actually going to be in a place that I didn't want my defenses, I would have said, you're crazy. Because those defenses I knew were helping me to survive.
Yeah, exactly. And at some point they become limiting, and self doesn't want them anymore, doesn't want any blocks or barriers to love. The plus side of feeling like this is there's a kind of a tsunami of peace, love, and joy right behind it. So
Okay. Thank you,
it's worth it.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you too.
So much.
Okay, we'll leave it there for this evening. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.